Okay, hello everybody. It's the Gin and Tonic Show. It's Sunday morning. It is the 8th of February. We're an online discussion show. We are a platform discussing Islam. That's what we're focused on. That's what we are trying to present to people, a way of communicating with others about something that is actually quite difficult to understand and to grasp in its entirety. And this is what we're trying to do. So we're people who have, well, I suppose we've read the Quran, as everybody always tells us, and then we've gone a little bit further than that, and we have different approaches. We're different people. We're individualists. We have our little perspectives. We are human beings. In other words, we are made up of a billion of different things, of the different approaches, of different things that we like and don't like. So everybody's an individual, but what is in common here is that we have some knowledge about Islam. Now, I've never been a Muslim, and I am joined today by Arash, who was a Muslim, and he,
hello everyone.
Like me, has a strong attachment to Iran. I mean, because he was. I think you were born there, right? You were born in Iran.
Yeah, I was born there, and I went back and forth a little bit and in schooling. So I had schooling both in Iran and outside.
Oh, great. Okay, so that gives us a very good perspective to understand what everyday life is about, and then how somebody goes from there to being an atheist and being somebody outside of this whole group or clan or cult or sect or whatever you want to call it. This is the second thing. We are atheists. In other words, we do not proselytize. We don't tell anybody what to think, how to think, what to believe, what not to believe, or anything regarding gods. Now, an atheist is only that. Is somebody who has an opinion. No, sorry. Is somebody who does not believe anything about gods, and that is it. So don't ask an atheist about the universe and evolution. I think not every atheist knows. An atheist is only and solely about not believing what a theist does. It's the atheist, and a theist believes that there's a God, at least one anyway, and the atheist does not. So saying that the atheist professor or the atheist boxer or the atheist something is so stupid, because an atheist only has one single bit of information attached, and that is the lack of a belief or the absence of a belief regarding gods, and that is it.
Though to be fair, atheists usually do have a connotation that comes with them. You know, a lot of times.
Absolutely, yeah, but it has nothing to do with the atheist as such. So labeling somebody an atheist something is stupid. Like it's saying like the golfer, whatever. This is why I always come up with the dragon, because this is equally ludicrous. If you believe that dragons exist or you don't believe that dragons exist, it does not make you anything else.
Well, I mean, I just mean that sometimes people become atheists by sometimes the studies they go through, or, you know, especially if you're in the field of science, a lot of times they have a lot of atheists, and it's almost directly related, you know.
Yes, but not everybody does. And this is why, if you're talking about an atheist, strictly speaking, there is nothing attached to the word atheist. So whether you prefer riding a bike or rollerblading or riding a motorbike or a car or whatever, there's no information. If you are an atheist, it does not tell you whether you like riding a bike or whether you prefer riding a car. It doesn't say anything about you, other than that you lack a belief regarding gods, or that you don't believe what the theist believes. But because this is always difficult, because people, like you say, conflate things, and then they say, well, if you're an atheist, that means you're also into evolution. No,
I mean, there's a lot of things that we're kind of looking at it through our perspective, where we come from. I don't know about you specifically, but a lot of friends that I have, they come from a Christian background. I come from a Muslim background, and for me, becoming an atheist was a process. And a lot of times that's not true for like a lot of Chinese people. I have a friend who's Chinese, and he's actually from Hong Kong, so he would be British if you'd ask him. But he was born atheist in a way because he was never told anything to believe in anything, and so for him it wasn't a process. It was just common, normal. Everything was just the way it's supposed to be. Was being an atheist. Of course, there's no God because we never talked about God.
Exactly. So there's so many different ways to be an atheist, or why somebody is an atheist, that to say somebody is an atheist X, for me, is ludicrous.
I thought we should maybe. I also wanted to talk about some of the new aspects. I mean, just recently, ISIS did that horrific new act of showing off to the world how barbaric they can be. So we can talk about that as well. I don't know if you want to get into that before or after the historical aspect.
No, I think this is something that we should touch on, because I think this is like a it changes. And I don't know why the incident in Paris stirred up so much emotion, so much activity, so much in I don't know, in things that have happened because of Charlie Hebdo being being attacked. And I don't know why it is, why that grabbed people's attention. Maybe it was an attack on the media that made the media come out much stronger, and I don't know what this is.
I don't think the media has come out too strong. I don't think in the U.S. right now they've almost forgotten about it. They're more focused on some reporter lying about something about a helicopter, so it's just not even talked about anymore.
No, I'm talking about Muslims, where they were shown, this is you, all right. This is what you are backing. This is your God. That you.
Also, you're saying that the attack on the media affected the Muslims a lot.
No, what I'm saying. Let me explain this a little bit better. Then, what I'm thinking is maybe it was a media outlet that was attacked, which brought out the remaining media to report on this harsher than they normally would, than whether this was a train station or something.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, this I see as a huge effect. And the other thing, and suddenly people are talking about this a lot, is what happened with this Jordanian pilot. Now, this is something where again, I think the media is telling Muslims, look, this is what is happening in the name of the group that you belong to. And this is what, okay, maybe we should also go into this thing, is Islam really a cause? Because people are saying, well, maybe it is, maybe it's not, but America is even worse. And is Islam a cause for something? And I say, well, it's a very easy equation. Is if I take the Jordanian pilot minus Islam, then this Jordanian pilot will be alive, because I don't think anybody on this planet
I don't know if we
will
can
another
do that.
human alive putting them into a cage.
I don't think we can do that. I'm sure there have been times where people have been burned alive. I mean, just...
No, today. I mean, I'm talking about today.
Well, okay, when I say today, like when we talk about today, I think we should talk about this century, because I look at some of the things that...
This century, yeah.
I think that this century is a... we're giving them enough slack, okay? And so I'm not going to compare 700-year-ago Christianity to now, so I'm not going to say, okay, so they did that, so right now the Muslims are doing it, so it's okay. That's not what we're going to say. We're going to say compared to right now, relatively. I could say that burning people isn't that Islamic per se. I mean, when they burn them...
It's anti-Islamic.
I mean, I don't want to say it's anti-Islamic. I've heard a lot of people saying it's against Islam, but I'm sure that Muslims have burned other people before. I mean, it's not like something specifically. I had a list, actually, of all the things that, like this long list of things that you're not supposed to do. And there was these most ridiculous things in them, but burning someone wasn't in there.
Well, this is exactly the point. And you can argue now, looking at the text, that you're not supposed to, because Muhammad said that you're not allowed to burn people, because this is only God who can burn people. This is the kind of...
Where does it say this exactly? Is it in the Quran that says this? Or you said hadith says this?
Hadith.
Well, which hadith is this?
You want the name and the number?
If I could have the exact quote, would be perfect. And the name.
I don't have it at the top of my... No, I'm somebody who will remember things, but I will not remember the...
Oh, no, I'm same here, so that's fine.
So I would have to now go and look which Bukhari and which Muslim this was, but I know it is there, so yeah.
Just because recently I've been getting in some debates, and one of the things that even, I don't want to say Sunni, he looked Sunni in his picture because of the beard, I would say. They would say, don't bring up hadith in order to criticize Islam. I'm like, what are you talking about? This hadith is a huge part of the Islamic tradition. And he's like, no, focus on the Quran. And so now they're even trying to say, okay, don't even bring up the hadith because there's so many different kinds, so you can't even say which is.
Yeah, that's what I normally do. Yeah, normally.
You use the hadith or not? You just use
no. I use the Quran.
Yeah,
I use the hadith only when it is really necessary and when it has been quoted to me.
Using the hadith, I think, is too easy in a way.
Well, it is because you can prove like almost anything you want.
Right.
Because they are so contradictory within themselves. Okay, but this is the whole point that we're making. So there's different ways of approaching a topic, okay? So if you're looking at this, and I don't know why this has left a mark on the Muslim community at the moment, these two incidents.
Just to go back to say, just to go back to what you said earlier, why isn't this the cause, though? Well, I don't think this is Islam is the cause for this one compared to the Charlie Hebdo thing, is because the Charlie Hebdo thing was directly related to Islam. If you take out Muhammad, there's not going to be a killing for Muhammad. But if you take out Islam, people will still burn people for other reasons. You're never going to find anyone.
Okay. Yeah, I understand what you mean. Yes.
That's why you can say, for me, we got into this huge thing 2 episodes ago. That's why, for me, the Charlie Hebdo thing is much more an example of how Islam is the cause of some kind of violent act. But this thing is more of a political/power thing that I could see other people doing.
Exactly. This is exactly the point, and I think this is why Muslims are reacting so strongly, that they are now seeing Muslims doing atrocious things to Muslims. And because in the Sharia it is said you're not, or in the Hadith it says you're not supposed to burn, this then
so they feel comfortable.
IS, this Daesh, is not looking at Islam, but is looking only at politics and power. That's exactly the point that you're making.
So they feel comfortable criticizing Daesh now because they can separate it. If Daesh was more Islamic, they would not feel comfortable. So that's why. So you're saying that. I think it makes sense. So that's why there wasn't an outrage in the Charlie Hebdo. Not only was there not outrage, it was anti-outrage. It was the opposite kind of protest. Was because it was directly related to Islam. But this thing that isn't directly related to Islam, they can support.
And that's why I think these two things seem to be like things that are grabbing Muslims at the moment. That they are. I don't think the people who killed the Charlie Hebdo, these cartoonists, expected the kind of reaction, the kind of feedback that they were actually getting. I think this was a surprise for them, how strongly the reaction was. And this is now, another kind of an incident where Muslims are now seeing the real nature of Daesh. So I think these are two things which are shaping the whole conflict between Daesh and the rest of the world.
We're getting kind of political here on this tangent, but I love this tangent, honestly. So do you think that this is going to unite the Arab world against Daesh, finally?
I think yes. That's what I'm seeing anyway, yeah. The initial reaction. I don't know if this is going to be more lasting or what, but at the moment, this is what is happening, yes.
Well, I think that it seems like that, at least in Jordan, and why would Daesh or ISIS do such a thing is my question. Why are they... It's a pretty stupid act. It's pointless in a way.
Yeah.
Why would
I
they
think
do
they're
it?
drunk. I think they're drunk with the power that they have over life and death.
I think I'd agree with you in a way that I think they think that they can do no wrong, or at least the rulers. Just recently I read that they had executed a few for criticizing what they did to the pilot. So, I can see a godly aura coming from the leaders, or how they see themselves, at least.
So that is one thing. Okay, other things. Let me just quickly. For me, it's been a tough week on a personal note, because I can't say Muslims. Somebody, I personally suspect they were Muslims, has flagged my Iran video, because out of the 200 videos that I've made, One is handling Ahmadinejad and his defense minister, how they were lying to people at the, what was this? This was the commemoration of the 25th, or I can't remember, 35 years of revolution, and they brought out this plastic jet. This is something where somebody said to me, "Can't you make a video about this?" and blah blah blah. "Can't you talk about this? This is so funny." And
are you talking about the Q313?
Yeah, the Khair.
Okay, I remember this. This is such an embarrassing episode for, I'm sure, all Iranians out there.
Yes. So I picked this up. I mean, I ignored this because for me it was just, cringeworthy, but nothing special. But then a lot of people came to me and said, "Listen, can't you do something, because I have this sense of humor," which apparently people like. And then I said, "Okay, let me sit down." So this was like, I don't know, this is like 7 minutes, okay? So I just look at how in the past they came with this missile, then they came with this drone, then they did this, then and I thought to myself, this fits in perfectly into the pattern. Can't they do something real? And I said, look, this is what has happened in the past. This is what they're doing now. And now somebody has come out and cut out the plane, the way it was standing in this funny school gym or whatever. And then they put this on top of Mount Damavand. I said, I could do that. And I went into Photoshop and I cut it out, put it on top of the photo, and showed this is what you could do with it.
I saw that. It's so ridiculous. You can do that with paint. You don't have to use Photoshop.
But I did this, and this is like 30 seconds, okay? And I said, and I managed to make it look the same way as what they did. And I pointed out that they cut the photo out complete with the reflections of the lights in this hall.
Exactly, yes.
With the flaps in the same position and everything. They just cut off the undercarriage and then they left it at that. The most primitive thing in the world.
That's why when I saw this, I thought there's no way that this is. I don't think I've seen your video, but when I first saw this a while ago, this news, and I saw this picture that's right on top of Mount Damavand, it was obvious, like the light shining was still there from the gymnasium, and I thought, this is no government doing. I don't think they meant to, because how stupid do they think everyone is? This is just ridiculous.
Anyway, but this was just primitive propaganda, and I laughed about it, okay? So I made a quick video about this, which was just fun. There was nothing serious about this. This was just sheer fun. But I don't know why a lot of Iranians, I think it's mainly Iranians, but a lot of Muslims also, because I insult all Muslims here, I don't know, there's thousands every single day that watch this. Thousands. And I don't know why. I don't know what grabs their attention, whether it's the photo, whether it's the title, I have no clue why this thing is appealing to people. So anyway, it's still going strong. It's not the 15,000 it had in the beginning. It's down to, I think, 2, 3, or maybe 5,000 a day. But it's still going strong. And now somebody flagged it as containing spam. So it was taken down. And I got a notification from YouTube. Your video has been removed because the YouTube community has considered it as inappropriate. And I thought, what?
Wow.
And then I got, like when you call up the video, it says this video has been removed due to excessive spam and scam and commercial contents and things like that. So this is the way that they are trying to censor people. Right? So they don't like this video, so they go and they say it contains blah, blah, blah. And YouTube, if they receive 20 or 30 of these, then they automatically take the video down. They don't even look at it. But then, because I have so many views, I am able to go to YouTube and actually communicate with them, which with a normal video, you can't do that. So then I said to them, listen, guys, there's nothing in there. I'm just making a comment on a press release on Iran, and that's it. There's nothing in there that is in any way commercial, and a couple of hours later it was back up. So for me it was like a sickening moment, a heartbreaking moment, when my most successful video with 2.5 million views was taken down because of this stupid argument that it contains spam. And this channel is Stopspamming. It's crazy.
it's all those embarrassed Iranians. They couldn't stand to see this being published. That's what it is. I can't do anything else.
But what is funny, do you know that some of these are professional people? They don't do anything else except go on YouTube and make pro-Iranian comments.
You know, there's a lot of this happens all the time. You know, for everything. I've seen I've heard a lot about these Russian bots online, so called. Or when the Ukraine happened, they go on this huge information.
Well, disinformation, yeah.
Disinformation, I guess, online. You know, I've heard this about Zionist Jews from Israel. I've heard this about Muslims or anti-Muslims. You know, this is just a very natural thing, I think, for these people trying to use the internet for propaganda and making money from it so easily.
Yeah, and it works.
Yeah.
Well, in my case, it didn't. But a lot of people believe this, and this is why you have all this information. This is why in the 90s you had this huge surge of information regarding scientific miracles on the Quran. Then when YouTube, when did YouTube start? They started, I think, 2004 or something like this. So this was then God's gift to mankind that they were, and then Wikipedia and all these places, they were suddenly full of this dis or misinformation. That was quite funny. So anyway.
No. It's okay. I was just thinking, I want to get into this. It's 4:30 right now. If you want to continue with this ISIS thing, I had some questions and interesting perspectives I got from YouTube viewers. Actually, I think it was a Muslim, but he actually asked a good question, or I thought was interesting. But if you don't mind, I was going to go and come back in maybe 10 seconds. I just got to go to the bathroom real quick.
Okay, then I'll just quickly run through some topics, because what is significant is that Saudi Arabia has a new king. The king is dead. Long live the king. And King Salman is now the head, and it's going to be tough for him. And within his reign, already you've had, I don't know, 17 beheadings or something like that. So it looks as though not a lot is going to change. How he's going to tackle the Daesh mess, I don't know, because they have this huge border with Syria and Iraq, and with Iraq, sorry. I don't know how they're going to handle this. If there's really going to be a coalition of UAE and Qatar and Saudi and all these countries, along with Jordan, taking a stand against Daesh and going in there and saying, listen, this has to stop, and it has to stop now. Now Japan has been drawn in because at least one guy has been executed, so they're a bit pissed off. So I don't know if they're going to go in there now. So this is quite interesting what is going to happen there in the next couple of months. So and you get these people who go to Syria expecting I don't know what. They are told, I mean, women go there and they say, yeah, but this is going to be great for you. You're going to do something for Islam, and you're going to be doing something positive, and we're going to now establish the caliphate, and this is what we all want. This is going to be run under, the Sharia, and this is going to be the purest Islam that you're ever going to have, the way that it was when the Prophet and the caliphs in those days were. And they go off, and then they find reality. And then they come back and they're brainwashed, and this is quite funny.
You know, it's interesting that there is a certain age group that tends to go here. There is a certain group of people. Like, there's a book that's called "What is a Terrorist?" or "What Makes a Terrorist?" I can't exactly remember.
Yeah.
And it tries to say that terrorism isn't defined by your socioeconomic place, or how poor you are, or how much education you have. It's not about lack of education. A lot of terrorists are highly educated. But the thing that it didn't
really
try to... Sorry, go ahead.
Highly educated? I don't think so.
Like, highly educated as in they're engineers, you know, they're not lowly educated people.
But that is not your typical terrorist.
Well, see, that's the thing. What the examples it had a huge list of Hezbollah operatives. Now, there is the mistake it was having is it doesn't define exactly what a terrorist is. So if you want to define terrorist as a secretive organization like Hezbollah fighting against Israel the way it is, and if that's a different terrorist than someone like Daesh, who is made up of 7-year-olds even, or people who don't even know how to read and write.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. Now I agree. Yeah.
So I think that the book failed to distinguish between what kind of terrorist are we talking about, because the people in Afghanistan, who are, if you want to call the Taliban terrorists, aren't educated. The people in Daesh are not educated. They're not older people. They're poor, disenfranchised people who are a fringe part of society, unlike a successful part of society, unlike some people maybe that are in Hezbollah or Hamas members or whatever.
Yeah, that I agree with it. I mean, in general, we have a problem defining terrorism.
So I think I guess what I was going for is Daesh is a different problem than, say, Hezbollah, because Daesh does feed off of the social economic problems in the region. So Daesh does feed from hunger and the way I've been understanding it, unlike maybe other things which doesn't need that per se.
Okay, but what would you say makes a terrorist then? What does it take to become a terrorist? For something that we saw like 20 years ago, when it was socialists, communists, all sorts of people who were trying to shake the establishment and try and introduce new rules, as opposed to what we are seeing today.
See, I think that even that terrorist is defined almost by the one Hezbollah is defined as. So, we're in a different type of world right now where the terrorists we're defining are created due to the circumstance that is chaos in the Middle East. The terrorists that we're talking about, maybe the IRA or the socialist terrorists, are anti-establishment, or they're trying to bring this chaos per se to be able to take something out of it, bring power into it, something like maybe Hezbollah, maybe to try to disrupt Israeli power, create some kind of anarchy in the defense, into the status quo, and then try to take power out of that. Do you know what I'm saying? So I think that even those terrorists, so if you want to define terrorists as those people back then, even the socialists, you could say that they were educated. You could say that they were more educated than the typical Daesh terrorists right now.
Agreed, yeah. So what do you think drives a person today to join Daesh? I mean, what I see is a lot of times that what people, the kind of people who convert to Islam are normally people who say, well, I've been drinking, I've been smoking, I've been hanging around, I haven't done anything, and I need some rigor in my life. And then they embrace the pretty rigorous ritual or ritualized schedule that you have within Islam, where you have all these rituals that you need to perform at a certain time, otherwise you're a bad boy. So they will join and enjoy the structure that they have in their life all of a sudden. This is what I see, but these are not people who are intellectuals or academics or something who can give a reason to their life without having. So
you think it's the structure that pulls them to this? I mean, you could say that the military is much more structure-based or rigid than Islam. Becoming a Muslim, so to speak, I think.
Yeah, but the military, what is the benefit of the military?
I mean, there's lots of, depending on where you, here, I don't want to get into that. That's not what I meant. I just meant that if it's rigid structure that they want, I think there's other ways to get it than Islam. I think right now...
Yeah, but not in connection with a God.
So there's a huge spiritual aspect to this, which is different.
I don't think it's spiritual. I think it's a real tit for tat. I mean, if I do this, then I get this. In the military, all I get is a couple of bucks, and I can make a living. And then if I go to Iraq and get killed, what do I get for that? Nothing. Then I'm dead. But in Islam, you are told if you are killed in battle, then you are not killed, you are martyred. And as a martyr, you have benefit X, Y, Z. So
this is exactly what we were talking about before, where I agree, where I think Islam is a reason why they are more tend to go into violence than other things. But some of the viewers would disagree, and some people like Klingshore, which I like to take that opinion to try to prove to myself that I'm wrong, but I can't. Like you're saying, I think, why is it that we have this huge problem all of a sudden, not even all of a sudden, compared to other things relatively, in Muslim lands, and they're so easily believe into being martyred? Why is that compared to like Buddhists or others?
Yeah. So this is the way that I see it. This is the situation, the way that I understand it. Okay, then you want to just go into a topic to continue on with last time with the caliphate.
Well, I was actually really
and then after like half an hour, I'll just open the chat and then people can join us. And
that would be perfect. That would be perfect. Okay, I'll start because that leaves the. I was going to say we should talk about the king a little bit. I thought that was interesting, but that gets us a little bit more to the political talk. But we can leave that up to when some of the viewers might join. But I wanted to give a little bit about Shiism and then go into Ismaili Shiism, which is a branch of Shiism, one of the two branches, the two main branches. And I thought that it was very interesting because I didn't know anything about these per se. I mean, I knew a little bit, but I didn't know about their ideology and the way that they practiced it. And reading a little bit into it, it got me so interested, and I thought it was worth sharing. So if you could do me a favor and ask me questions in a way that would help the viewers maybe follow better and help me stay on track.
Like what? Okay,
like
what is the answer that you would like to give?
So if I get on if I start going too much on tangents, you can help me come back. You know, what happened to that thing you were saying? You know, things like that. No, I'm just going to try to fit this as much as I can in 30 minutes. So just to put everything back together in the last one, we said that Shiism is a separate branch which split off because of who's going to follow on Muhammad, who's going to be the leader of the Ummah after Muhammad. Sunnis had the Caliphate and Abu Bakr, Uthman, Omar, and the Shias believe that Ali should have had it. This is all, we all know about this. But at some point, we have the Shias breaking off. So we have Ali ibn Abi Talib, the first Imam per se, or the ones that they thought should have been Caliph, and then his son Hussein, who died at Karbala, which I pointed out in the Battle of Karbala last time, you know. Son of Hussein is Ali Zain al-Abidin, his son Muhammad al-Baqir, and his son Jafar al-Sadiq. Now you got to realize these are all successive, it's hereditary, but they're not the oldest son per se. They choose which one they want, so it's not really like a monarchy. Now, after the sixth Imam, Jafar al-Sadiq, Shia split off. One of them goes into the Twelvers, which is the majority of them, and then one of them goes into the Ismaili, which I'm going to focus on today, which I think is very interesting. Now, Shiism compared to Sunnism, the way I put it in a very, very basic way of looking at one aspect, is it's more esoteric compared to Sunni Islam. Does that make... do you know what I'm talking about when I say that?
No, I was just going to ask, if you say esoteric, do you mean spiritual, or do you mean more or less text-related?
Less text-related. I mean, they look at...
more looking at intentions.
More looking at an inner meaning, yes.
Okay.
So this is how they would define themselves. And so they thought that Muhammad had this light that other prophets have had. Now, this light is a divinely appointed, it's like a divine kind of knowledge, which...
But from what? Okay, just to get things straight, in Sunni Islam, you have the hadiths, which explain And you have the Sirah, most importantly, which is even more important than the Hadith in this case, which it tells you who Muhammad was, why he was where he was, and then how this led to him being this special figure. Because without the Sirah, just looking at the Hadith, you don't get this information. Because there you have the fact that he is or was, and what happens because of that. How do you do this in Shia? What do they have? Because Muhammad is the same guy, but how do they get to this conclusion?
Well, they look at their imams almost at the same height as Muhammad. Some of them do. Some of them openly do. Some of them wouldn't say so, but they do in practice.
Well, you have the same thing with Sunnis, who you also have Mr. Wahhab or Mr. Ahmadi. I mean, all these people.
But no. I think that's a completely different way of idealizing a person. When the Sunnis didn't look at Abdul Wahhab as a prophet or someone who can interpret God's work, right? But the Shias, they look at the imams as someone who can actually interpret the inner meaning of the Quran, things that normal people, no one besides the prophet and the certain line can interpret. It's something that's very special, only in the lines of the prophet.
Ah, okay, so it's more like the
Abraham.
Catholics and the Pope.
Exactly. This is why Shias a little bit are more Catholic, kind of like Catholics, because they have these more saintly things that have a special relationship with the text and with the religion and with what God wants, compared to Sunnis who have more of a literal way of looking at it and say, here's the text, we're going to interpret it pretty much literally as it says.
And then you have the super prophet, the Mahdi, or what?
Well, that's just the latest of the imams. So pretty much Shias believe that you're supposed to listen to what the imams say. Now the imam is, they're the divinely appointed successor of Muhammad, you could say. And whichever imam is alive, Shias are supposed to believe that you're supposed to follow that imam. Now, Twelvers only believe in the Mahdi. Now, the Ismailis, this is the interesting part, Ismaili's imam is alive right now. And this is the interesting part. You have pictures of him and a few other ones. And they're actually leading, he's leading the Ismaili Ummah, if you can call it that. And he's got a very secular interpretation of Islam. I mean, if you look at him, he's dressed very nicely with like a suit and tie, and he doesn't even look like he's Muslim per se. You know, he doesn't even look that brown. So it's kind of funny. But I'll get into Ismailis a little bit later. So the Imam, so pretty much the Shia versus Sunni thing is this. Shias believe that you're supposed to look to the Imam as to interpretation. Sunnis believe that you're supposed to look at the Quran and the Sunnah, and that's it, right? So you have the Imamate versus the Caliphate. The Caliphate is more of a Sunni thing where you pretty much have power, and the Islamic scholars tell you how literally you're supposed to interpret Sharia. So the Sharia is laid out as it says in the Quran. The Imamate is different because the Imam has the power to actually change the interpretation of how we're supposed to implement Sharia due to the time. This is the difference a little bit.
Okay, but now in Sunnis, you have to have a direct lineage to the Quraysh. How does it work with the Imams?
This is the funny part, I think, because there's so many Imams which aren't even like the Ismaili Imams. They are totally not Qurayshi per se, because if you look at their lineage, they've been living in Iran actually for the past some 1,000 years, like at least not 1,000 years, but like 700 years at least, 7 to 1,000 years. So it's really interesting how you can't really say that they go back, because who's there to say that these claims are right anymore after 1,000 years of living in a whole other land, right?
Okay, and then how does that develop?
Now, okay, so we established that something that kind of separates the Shiism thing is the imams. The imams can interpret Sharia. Now, we're not going to talk about the Twelvers, which are the main ones. I'm just going to talk about the Ismailis. Now, they're called Ismailis because that's where they split off from the Twelvers. The sixth Imam had a son named Musa Kazim, where the Twelvers kind of branched off into. They thought he was the imam, and then that was their 7th imam, and then later on to 12 more, and then the 12th one, Mahdi, went into hiding. He was alive. He's still alive. It's not like Jesus that died and came back. He just went into hiding. So he's been alive for all these long. The Ismailis believe
Sudan somewhere, right?
What was that?
In Sudan.
Well, some people believe. Depends. Some people believe he's in a well in Iran. It depends on who you ask where he is, you know. But anyway, the Ismailis thought that Ismail bin Jafar, son of Jafar al-Sadiq, not Musa Kazim, is going to be. So that's why they're called Ismailis. Now, so the Ismailis started out as a minority, right? Even smaller than the Sunnis, and not smaller than the Twelvers, because the Twelver Shia thing came out later, you have to realize. The Twelver Shia got big during the Safavid time. So at a time, the Ismaili Shias were the larger sect of Shiism. Okay? So these Ismailis are the Fatimids, which have you've probably heard of, are the first Ismaili caliphate. Right?
Okay, but now we're talking, what, 8th century?
The Ismailis, I thought it was, right, I got to look this up exactly. I'm not sure when the Ismailis are exactly when to when, okay? I don't have that in my notes right now. But the, right after the Ismailis is where the Abbasids come, right? So have you ever heard of Hassan as-Sabbah, or the Assassin Creed?
Yes.
He was a Ismaili Shia, and so he actually had his own. They started their own pretty much Nizari Ismaili state against the Seljuks. So from then on, you could even say that the Ismaili sect moved more east. So from an Arab kind of religion. So the Fatimids were an Arab dynasty, right? They were an Ismaili dynasty. When they broke up and the Abbasids came, the Fatimids went into hiding again, you could say, or not the Fatimids, the Ismailis went into hiding again. One group that was alive during this time, pretty much rebelling against the establishment, was this assassin group, or Hassan as-Sabbah, which he was a huge leader of one of the biggest Ismaili states at that time. Now, we're going to fast forward all the way. Now, if they've had an imam alive, and they followed that imam every time one's been born. So they've had 49 imams until now, and the 49th one is still alive right now. His name is...
But how were they determined?
They followed him. This is, have you know the word taqiyya? People love that word, the taqiyya or whatever.
Yeah.
That's where this comes from. So for 700 years, when the Fatimids were broken up, they moved their family in the Ismaili sect, kind of moved to eastern Iran, where Khorasan is right now, right? And so for 700 years, they lived kind of persecuted. So they practiced, this is where the word taqiyya comes from, they practiced taqiyya in order to blend in. So meaning pretending to be another kind of Muslim in order to survive, pretty much.
So what you are saying is, if we're looking at the center of Islam, somewhere in northern Arabia, then the political Islam moved a little bit north into Syria, into Damascus. So you had this stretch of land between Syria down to Jordan, all the way down to the sea, and then it moved east and northeast. And it moved because I remember that it started in Iraq, around the Basra region, and they went north and northeast until you get like almost into Russia now. Is that where the mainstream Ismailis went?
Well, yeah, and Khorasan is where you're thinking of, is more kind of towards Tajikistan and
exactly. Yeah.
This is why I was saying that it kind of comes out of its whole Arabic context. That's why I was really interested, because it's a branch of Islam which really doesn't have much Arabic in how it developed. And they are developed more in Central Asia, northeastern Iran, Khorasan region. That's why lots of these Ismaili philosophers like Nasser Khosrow. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
No.
They were just Persian. They spoke Farsi, and they were just Persians. And I actually knew about Nasser Khosrow, but I always thought he was a poet and a philosopher. I had no idea he was such a huge character in Ismaili thought, in a way.
Just a quick question. If I look at the language, Arabic is not or was not a standardized language at that time. You had different dialects and things like that. Now you said they spoke Persian, which is Farsi. Has there been a similar thing, that there has been a language which has been preserved, which is like ancient Persian, or has it always developed and moved over and evolved over time?
Well, I mean, we have Old Persian, we have Middle Persian, which is Pahlavi.
Sorry, but is it still in use? Still in use today?
No, yeah. None of that is still in use, but you can see the changes. So if I would read a sentence of Old Persian from, let's say, Darius Ecumenic time, 2,400 BC. I'm sorry, 2,400 years ago.
Is that in Persepolis?
What was that? Yeah, Persepolis, pretty much. I can pretty much take out some words, but if they were just to talk in that language, I would not understand. But I can kind of
understand. Okay, so you have the same thing, but it's not like Arabic, where you have the MSA, the Modern Standard Arabic, which is one language, and then you have the Old Quranic Arabic, which is significantly different, the same as Old Greek, Ancient Greek, and Modern Greek. But it's not in use anymore. So it has gone the standard way of development that you see in all languages.
Yeah, exactly. So you see Arabic words come in after a certain period of time, and
naturally,
like such, but if this is why it's interesting, because the Ismaili, I don't know what the word for this kind of terminology, their religious terminology, I guess that's the best word for it, is actually very Farsi oriented. So when I was reading this, the guy kept on using words like what was it? Words like tariq, he was like, you're not supposed to look at this in the traditional Islamic law meaning, because that's not how he's using it. He is using it in this meaning. And I realized, that's the Farsi meaning for it, And so he's kind of basing it off of that. And I can look up exactly what words I was looking at, but he was talking about Nasser Khosrow's ideology. So you see a lot of these, for example, they call prayer, instead of salat, they call it dua, which is prayer, in Farsi, and things like that. So you see changes, and when I saw this, it just made me think about how much there is a potential of change in Islam. So with the Islam that we see right now could be different if things happened. It's because the way I'm looking at these guys are so different from what Sunnis or even Twelvers are at the moment. It's funny how they're actually still considered Muslim. In the Amman conference in Jordan, they were considered one of the main branches of Shia Islam. So,
Well, I always maintain that somebody who says, well, I read the Quran and I worship the God described in the Quran, that's a Muslim. Finished. So this is my criteria. And if somebody says I'm a Muslim, then that criteria is fulfilled. That's what I call a Muslim.
But it's just that I know, living in Iran, we have people tend to go against the government. We have an Islamic government, so we have a huge atheist population in Iran, you would not believe. And a huge...
I know that. Even in my days, come on, I mean, there were some very strict and conservative Orthodox people, even in those days.
I mean...
And they had the girls go out in a chador, for example. But the first thing that when she was around the corner, doof, 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 this thing got packed in the bag, and out came the stilettos and the jeans. Come on.
It's funny how like religion means so little to some of these people, but they call themselves Muslim.
Yeah, it's spiritual. It's for the spiritual people, not for me. I'm a educated person. I don't need this. This is exactly the sentiment. I mean, Tehran University was so brilliant.
Do you think this is a Shia thing or not?
I think no. look at history. Look at the Assyrians. Look at Akkadians. Look at Persians. I mean, they were always at the forefront of any kind of revolution, any kind of revolutionary idea, any kind of progress, any kind of thinking came from within that region. Look at all these Khwarizmi. I mean, he was not an Arab, he was Persian. I mean, if I look at all the guys, all the polymaths that you had in those days, they all came from this region. It seems to be that the inventors and the non-spiritual fact-based inventors came from that region.
You know, actually, I wanted to talk about this to Klingshore before he left. He was talking about how he didn't believe that it was the Islamic Golden Age, but it was the Arabic Golden Age. But when you look at all the list of people that are defined as the big heads of the Islamic Golden Age, they were all pretty much non-Arabs.
Yes.
And so you can't even call it the Arabic Golden Age. A lot of the things like, Rumi and Avicenna, these weren't Arabic speakers. They actually, Rumi, all of his poetry is in Persian. So to say that it's an Arabic Golden Age is almost just as ridiculous, if not more, than saying it's an Islamic Golden Age.
Yeah, I recognize that. I realize that they all came from this region.
Okay.
So I think it's historic that the people will be more prone to critically look at things, and it has been like that for 2,000 years. So I don't know why this is. I don't know why you have certain regions which are more, prone to come up with new ideas as opposed to others. I don't know why that is.
I mean, it must be cultural. What else could it be?
Germans build best motor cars, but they're terrible at administration and stuff like this. And then the French are more into cooking, and so there's different regions with different character traits almost.
There's a I think it's written in the Ibn Battuta. You know who Ibn Battuta is?
No.
He's an Arabic Marco Polo, I think, kind of like figure. And he was writing about different kinds of groups, and he traveled all across like North Africa and up to Central Asia and back down. And I think he was actually, I'm not sure exactly where he was from. For some reason I thought Moroccan, but I could be wrong. And he was defining, he says that depending on where you go, people are good at different things. And he says for fighting, hire a Turk. For religious matters, hire an Arab. And for administrating, hire a Persian. So you can totally see the different cultural, because the Turks were the.
I want to notice this.
So it's I think it's kind of. Anyway, just to finish up on my thing, on my Ismaili thing. If you don't mind, just need like 2 more minutes. Anyway, so the Ismailis, their Imam is right now alive. His name is Imam Hassan Ali Shah. Or no, that was the 46th one. The one right now, his name is Sir Sultan. What is his name? They're all the same. I'm sorry, I'm confusing my notes. Imam Shah Karim al-Husseini is the one that's alive right now, known as Agha Khan IV, right? So they're called Agha Khan. So after the 46th Imam, which his name was Hassan Ali Shah, which is an Iranian name. Hassan Ali Shah is a very Iranian name, You couldn't even think of this to be an imam, an actual imam, but apparently he was the 46th imam of the, and he lived in Iran through all this time. He was the first one who could actually come out from the taqiyya. So they've been hiding for 700 years, 46th hereditary imams onward. This guy comes out into the light under the Qajar dynasty in Iran in 1818. So this is the first time they come out. And then the king, the Shah, names him Agha Khan. Agha means sir. So, and then Khan is a way of raising one's status. So it's like sir, almost. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's a very secular name. It's a non-religious name. So he names the imam, the 46th imam of the Ismailis, Aga Khan the First. And after that, so 4 generations onwards, after that until now, the imams are known as Aga Khans in Ismailis.
My first school was Aga Khan Primary School.
Where was this?
This was in Uganda.
I wonder if it had Sufi beginnings to it, because, or maybe it completely unrelated. But if it was related, it could be because of the Sufi relating to, because Aga Khan is very famous. His
then
son.
Unfortunately, then that's when we moved. Then I was only there for 2 years. Then we moved to Iran.
So the interesting part is after that. So the next guy, the 47th imam, or Aga Khan the Second, or it's the third one. He becomes so famous. He becomes the president of the League of Nations, if you can believe that, which is, I think, very interesting. So he becomes the president of the League of Nations back in that time. So what is that, 1930 something, right? And his son, which is the one that's alive right now, was born in 1956, I think, and he is literally running conjugations every once in a while, and he gets 1/10 of every practicing Ismaili's income.
Oh, wow.
I guess. And you know, that makes me almost look at it as a personality cult, kind of like these weird. You know, that's a lot of money. You know, they pray a little differently. They have 3 prayers. It's not like the other 12ers where there's actually 5, but they do 3. This is just 3. And a lot of the things that they do that's related to the religion is totally out of the mosque. So a lot of their works, for example, for people who are familiar with Christianity and Catholicism, how Catholics have works, these guys have works which are done outside of the mosque. Now, do you remember when you said you were in Islam, you saw in the Muharram time where they were hitting themselves?
Yeah.
There's these things called, do you know what a tekiya is? Have you ever heard of that? A tekiya?
No.
A tekiya is pretty much someone's garage where they hang black cloth in, and then they bring some guy and he sings. And it's a very weird kind of aura in Muharram. I've been in to a lot of these tekiyas. And, you know, you just walk in. They don't really check who's going in. But a tekiya, this is one of those examples of a works. So for them to be a good Muslim, it's participating in this, you know.
So more rituals.
Yeah, it's more ritual-based. A lot more ritual-based.
Wow.
And also you imagine how their Sharia is interpreted differently by their imam, which, like I said, is some suit-wearing guy who looks very white. So you can imagine how they interpret Islam. And I looked at some of their things. It's actually how Muslims wish they were, almost. How they try to describe themselves, almost. How, you know, this guy really does do a lot of interfaith kind of things. But of course, that is because they're a minority and they were evolved to be like this. You know, if they weren't a minority, who knows what would have happened?
Okay. Actually, this is quite interesting. What you said now with the Sharia. A lot of people think that Sharia is something fixed, that this is like Islamic law.
Well, that's more of a Sunni thing.
And it's not even in the Sunnis. It's not. Nobody knows what Sharia actually is. There is no such thing as the book on Sharia where you can read up what is happening. This is so flexible. It is.
Well, of course. Yeah. I mean, if you look at it like that, there is no. Yeah.
Okay, I've just posted the link. So if anybody wants to ask Arash a question, if anybody wants to make a suggestion regarding the show, the format, the contents, go ahead, join us and talk to us about it. If anybody wants to raise up a topic, go ahead. The way that it works, as usual, is you just go to the Gin and Tonic Show on YouTube. You just click on the About, and there you will see a live link, which you can use. Alternatively, if you are lazy like me, you just go to live. Oh shit! Where's Ike? What is it called again? It's live godless.ch. And I always forget this link. I don't know why.
So while we're waiting, I think we should go back to what you said earlier about the king dying. I think that's very interesting, relating to, you know, he was the Khadim al-Haramain. while he was alive. So the Islamic community has a new protector of the holy sanctuaries now. What this means and how he's going to change what he does is up to question. It's up to debate. It's interesting, I think.
Yeah, especially now what is happening in Jordan, because a lot of, well, let's say more clerics than before have come out in condemnation, and what is funny is they always condemn the act. They never condemn the people. They always say this act is heinous or terrible or whatever. They never say what these people are doing is barbaric or anything like that, which I find quite interesting, that they will never go so far as to criticize the Muslim. This is why I ask Muslims, do you condemn the Muslims who stone a woman to death? And this is where a lot of people falter and say, no, you cannot do that. You cannot criticize the people. You can only condemn the act, and the killing of innocents is prohibited and things like that. Okay, welcome. Yes, we've got a lot of people. Welcome. May I suggest that if you are not talking, that you mute your microphone so that we don't get too much interference in the background. Then there is no set order. If you want to raise a topic, you just go. Say something, make sure nobody else is talking, and then it's all yours. I don't know if I should start with a specific order.
Does anyone want to start anything? Does anyone have anyone that want to jump in?
I just had a question for you, Arash.
How's it going, Salamut?
No, not bad. Just more on your opinion. Would you consider the sort of the centralized edicts of a representative of God in Shia Islam to be like the theoretical structure of it, the hierarchy of it, to be more reminiscent of early Islam than Sunniism?
Well, maybe someone who's more educated in Islamic history about the four caliphs can answer this better, but I don't think so, in a way that the first caliphs had they knew themselves as people, and they didn't have that light we talked about coming through Muhammad, whereas the Shia imams do see that, so they see their imam as more directly connected to God, while the Sunnis would look at the caliphs like Umar and Uthman as the protectors of God's kingdom as much as God's vision. I mean, the word Ayatollah, which isn't an imam, there's a difference between Ayatollah and an imam. The word Ayatollah literally means almost, you could say, not the light of God, but he interprets what God says. So there's a difference. Does that make sense?
The more enlightened one.
Yeah, I think that Shias would say that their imams are more close to what God wants because they can actually understand the inner meaning of what God wants compared to someone. I mean, that's what this whole thing is. That's what the whole separation was. They said that, hey, Ali has this divine appointedness that needs to go, that is with him, put into Muhammad, chosen by Muhammad, and then his sons, which are Muhammad's direct descendants. While the caliphs said, no, that has nothing to do with anything. There's no such thing as a divinely guided people or person. If that makes sense.
Cool. Cheers for that. I'm not sure what to add. Just wanted your opinion on that, because I have heard the claim that the Shias are closer, but from other Shias to be sure, because like the way and before, like when I meant early Islam, I guess I really meant proto-Islam, because when Muhammad was alive, because they said in the same way that it reflected how the Ummah directly took the revelations from the Prophet. Then now we're taking the interpretations of the descendants of the Prophet, the people who have this enlightenment, as you say,
Exactly.
this enlightened reasoning. Yeah.
So this is a time while Muhammad is alive. So in a way, they're almost equating the imams to Muhammad, not to the caliphs. Okay. There is a thing you have to say, the shahada, in order to get into Shiism, so to speak, or Ismaili Shiism, doesn't matter. They say that, this is a rough translation, pretty much obey God and obey Muhammad and his family, or his chosen ones. So they put two orders in there. One is obey God, and then one is obey Muhammad and his family. So Muhammad and his family come with one order. They're almost equated. While God is something different, and then Muhammad and his family is one separate, almost divine thing. If that makes sense.
Yep. Cool.
Well, it doesn't make sense, but that's the way that it is. Because I think it follows from what the Quran says, where it says obey God and obey Muhammad. They just expanded that a little bit.
Like, yeah, I mean, normal Shiism, if you say La ilaha illallah, this is the normal Shahada, La ilaha illallah wa Muhammad Rasulullah, to become a Muslim. For Shiism, they add La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah wa Ali Waliullah, which means,
okay.
And Ali is the Wali of Muhammad, pretty much. So so they put that in there.
I wonder if there's a special version for the Ahmadiyyas as well, and Sufis and all these other. I wonder whether every branch has their own little version of this.
I wonder if Sufi is like that, because I know that Shia Sufis, like branches of Ismailis or branches of Twelvers, have different kinds of Shahada, like I just said.
Wow. Okay, anybody else have a comment or question or something?
Hi, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and
Okay.
clear.
Right, okay. Now my comment was, I find it absolutely funny in the Shia jurisprudence where they don't consider the hadith to be 100% authentic, and I think this really changes the perspectives of the type of Muslim that you're talking to. Like, for example, like, you can easily use the Shia criticism to criticize Sunni Islam and vice versa. But like, what I find funny is that there's multiple people who Shias just won't acknowledge as a hadith source. Like, the transmission chain, like, they will reject people like Abu Hurairah, Umar ibn Khattabi, Umar ibn Sa'id, and Harish bin Uthman for multiple reasons. Yet these are people you would see in Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. Yeah, I just wanted to add that in.
I think there's actually lots of groups that don't look at the hadith as seriously as some of the group people from the Sunnah, right?
Well, yeah, but like, for me, I came from a Sunni background, so and the people that I talk to are Sunnis, so I don't really know about.
I'm sorry. Could you tell us where the background is, if you don't mind?
Hello.
Could you expand on where you talking about? What was your background, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I'm an ex-Muslim, and I used to be.
Where from?
my parents are Pakistani, but I stay in the UK. And like I've not really been exposed to other groups. I have had the occasional meeting with an Ahmadiyya, but I've only ever met one Shia. I've never met any Ismaili, Barelvi, so all my knowledge really is basically has been focused to really criticize Sunni Islam, because to be honest, my knowledge on the Shia jurisprudence isn't really that great. But I think that's not true, because you know more about the sect that you have been in rather than other sects.
But are you are you talking now about the internal criticism that is going on within the different groups within Islam?
Yes.
Okay, right. Okay, Arash, do you want to comment, or I think this is it. I mean, what Salsa is saying is describing a situation.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. So yes, I think everybody agrees with you, and the thing is that the Shias have just decided to take a different tack and a different route on the interpretation of Quran and reject the hadiths.
I don't know if they've all actually rejected the hadith or not. I'm not sure if that's 100% of Shias.
No,
I just know that some of them have done that completely.
No, but like I think the key difference between Shia and Sunni is that, well, amongst other things, is that the Shia don't believe there's any book of hadith which are 100% authentic, whereas the Sunnis, whereas the Sunnis believe that the hadiths are 100% authentic. So.
Yeah, I know. Sunnis actually want to integrate now the hadiths into the scripture.
I look at it. Sorry, go ahead, Salamut.
Oh, no, I was about to ask, Salash to elaborate on something, but you go first.
I was just going to say that when I look at history, Shia history, kind of what I talked about last time, it's kind of a revolutionary history. It's there's lots of times where you can look at Shia Islam and see how it's politically connected, so how its evolution is very directly related to politics and where it was. So we were talking about how it was in Eastern Iran and how that shaped a lot of how it went forward and how the views went forward. So they look at some guy named Nasser Khosrow from an area called Khorasan. Now this guy's views are very, very Eastern-like, almost, they have aspects not of Buddhism, but a way of looking at it like that. Do you know what I'm saying? A much more esoteric way of looking at Islam than a literal way, And so when you look at Shia Islam, it's much more connected politically. I can bring up examples if you want. I mean, I was just thinking Safavids and how they created the Shia Islam we know right now. What I went to right now, that has a lot to do with the political atmosphere at the time. So yeah, go ahead.
Cool. I just wanted to ask you, Salash, because the Muslim environment I've come from is pretty liberal. Australia, Eastern New South Wales, more to be exact, and they're generally Quranists. So they claim to have rejected. I say claim because they bring it out sometimes, but they claim to have rejected the Sunnah and the hadiths entirely. So I was just wondering what sort of the environment, could you elaborate on the environment in the UK in that sort of sense? Because, yeah.
Yeah, with my experience with Quranists, it's Well, it differs from two perspectives. One will reject the hadith and the sunnah completely, while the other will consider the historical validity of the documents. But it really depends who you talk to. Regarding the UK, there really isn't much of a Quranist percentage in the there is just not that many. It's merely it's merely Sunni. The second biggest group would probably be the Ahmadiyas, and then there'll probably be the Shias. If I was to send a list where the Quranists would be, I would say they'd probably be fifth or sixth. Like, I think for people who are Quranists, for them it's an individual time of study for them to know, or like for them to understand the Quran. And I think more and more Muslims in the UK are slowly becoming Quranists. That might be due to other external factors, but yeah.
Yeah. The reason why I ask is a reason why why I suspect that there are so many Quranists is because it's perceived as very liberal, and most Muslims I interact with and perceive are generally the children of immigrants. So they came up with, so they were brought up in a household with these values, with this value system and this culture. However, they're in a very Western liberal society. So they generally got they've westernized and liberalized their religion accordingly, being brought up here. So I was just wondering, because it's only a foreign perception, could this I don't know, I guess slower cultural integration in England be due to so-called reporting of like cultural isolationism by Central Asian immigrants in the UK? And being on that side, could you extrapolate on how accurate that is?
Do you mean South Asian?
South and Central Asian, that area, but yeah,
'Cause I thought
the
they
immigrants
had-
in the UK being perceived to be like culturally isolationist, and they close themselves off in some almost sort of like ghettos and racial ghettos, and they don't integrate or interact much with the native culture, or it takes a very long time to do so.
I mean, I think it's also a French thing, and maybe other European countries too, more than just a British thing. I think we'd have to ask.
Yeah. I think like the way I perceive it would be different to someone like Stop's perspective, in my opinion. And what I mean is that I don't consider the isolation of, well, let's put it this way. The purpose of multiculturalism is it's like a melting pot of all cultures, and for it to integrate into the society that it's in. Like as an example, the Indian and Pakistani community has integrated to some degree. Like people are, like the Indian takeaway is a natural thing for British people to have. And even in the jobs you see, like they're not really excluding themselves from having jobs which intermix with other people. Are there some friends community which like to have its own kind of people around, sure, but that is rather to do with cultural preference rather than any faith-based reason. And also, regarding the whole France thing with the Charlie Hebdo thing, it's like, that was, well, one of the key problems was that these people who did it were disenfranchised, and these guys were in and out of prison before. Like, they were already in prison for mugging, for assault, and especially when you're coming up from like the housing blocks, which isn't known for its let's say clean environment. Let's say it's known for like gangs and all that. And when you have people who feel that they cannot be listened to, then they take alternative measures for them to be listened to. And then eventually, like for example, these people who did the shootings were radicalized in prison. They weren't radicalized in mosques or
I thought only one of the brothers went to prison, not both of them.
I think the one went to prison a lot, while the other has been to prison. That's the distinction I would make.
Yeah.
Okay,
but
I don't think we can say with certainty who was radicalized where, and what led to this. I mean, I think this is the whole thing that we started talking about initially. What are the factors which influence somebody into committing such an act?
But let me
just could I just comment quickly on the terms of disenfranchisement. I would say it's sort of hard to hold an individual responsible for sort of the trends of collectives. However, integration into like cultural integration is sort of a two-way street. The newcomers, would you say, they would be perceived as different and initially alienated by the, say, host culture. However, the newcoming culture also has to be receptive to the fact that they may have to change their values and that this is a new sort of value system. The thing with the idea of isolating yourself, the keeping to your values, so either latently or deliberately. I think most of it is latent and more sticking with a collective identity. But I think the new culture has to somehow become more receptive. It's hard to do that because it's a collective.
There's a lot of factors. There's a lot of factors contributing here. Yeah. But now, Abu, you have not said anything so far. What is your point?
Good day. Do you hear me?
Yeah. Fine. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, sorry, I was doing another thing. No, I wanted first of all to comment on this. What happened to this Jordanian pilot? So maybe I'm changing the subject.
I think it's along the same lines. It's talking about violence that we experience.
I agree. Just one thing. New rule: if you are doing another thing, don't say you're doing another thing when you come on here.
Okay. No. Because,
I'm just kidding.
Okay. No, because okay. So I don't know, but I watched this propaganda video from ISIS. It's 22 minutes. So I mean, I don't recommend that you show.
Did you actually watch the whole thing?
Yeah. So I don't recommend to show it for your children, at least not the last part of it.
I could not watch it, so I just saw the pictures of it. It's just too much.
Yeah, but the interesting thing was, yeah. So first, a kind of personal thing that I can say that I think I had some kind of nightmare, not about that, after the night after I saw that movie or that propaganda movie, but it was not about it was about hellfire. So when I woke up, I woke up like in the middle of the night, and then I remember like, what was it really that motivated me when I was a Muslim? And it is like the fear of hellfire, and that's a kind of good thing that or something you have to remind yourself of, that what religion is good at is like to tap into the brain's reward and punishment system, that people are actually scared of burning like forever. That's what's the motivator. Yeah, so or that was mainly what motivated me, the fear of hellfire. But this funny thing, there's a funny debate afterwards. Is it Islamic or un-Islamic to execute someone by burning someone? So there's an hadith in Sahih Bukhari, in the book of apostasy. It goes like this: some Sanadiqa, atheist, they translate it as atheist. I don't know if that's a good translation, but anyway, some Sanadiqa were brought to Ali, and he burnt them. The news of this event reached Ibn Abbas, who said, "If I had been in his place, I would not have burnt them, as Allah's messenger forbade it, saying, 'Do not punish anybody with Allah's punishment, fire.' I would have killed them according to the statement of Allah's messenger, 'Whoever changes his Islamic religion, then kill him.'" So, but the interesting thing was that in the end of this propaganda video, they actually made a statement from Ibn Taymiyyah. So it goes like this: قال ابن تيمية رحمه الله, Ibn Taymiyyah said رحمه الله, فأما إذا كان, but when it is في التمثيل الشائع, like for like the common example, دعاء لهم إلى الإيمان, they are like making dawah to the iman, or زجر, or like reproof, or how do you say, like لهم عن العدوان, like they are telling them not to make udwan, not to make like these bad things. فإنه هنا من إقامة الحدود, then it's truly a part of إقامة الحدود, like making the establishment of the punishment, والجهاد المشروع, and like common or approved jihad. So according to this fatwa, if I understand it correct, if anyone can find the whole fatwa, it would be interesting, but maybe it's out of context. But according to this fatwa, in certain, or according to Ibn Taymiyyah, in certain like situation, it is allowed to burn people. But yeah, but I think ISIS are pretty pragmatic, so they are like, I think the effect of burning someone is.
Sorry, I got a bit sidetracked now. Are you saying that there are hadiths which are saying don't burn, but there is a fatwa which says you can?
Yeah, the Mujaddiduddin, Ibn Taymiyyah, for anyone that doesn't know, he's like really big sheikh, one of the really big mashayikh in history, and he says, if I translate it, but if it's from a common example to make dua to Iman, or of zajrun, or like reproof is the best word. You know what is the best translation I could find of zajrun? From like udwan, from making bad things, or I should translate it. فإن هنا من إقامة الحدود.
If you read the Arabic, I'm always sidetracked because then I'm trying to see if there are words.
Okay, but I don't have a translation. I'm not
okay,
but yes, there's a platform.
I'm trying to translate in my head too, and I get sidetracked.
I've got an extra comment for that. Regarding the whole burning thing, Boko Haram has been reported of burning people as well. But that hasn't been reported as much. I don't know why, but there are reports of Boko Haram actually burning people to death. I just wanted to know that.
Okay, but what Abu Molim is doing, Molhid, sorry, is doing is showing the reason for this, how this is possible, because it's, on the one hand, it's un-Islamic, in other words, it's prohibited in the Sunnah, and now he's showing that there are instances where there are clerics who actually say, no, there is a reason why you're allowed to do that. So it's not the fact that, but the reason why. So this is a slightly different approach to this.
Yeah, okay.
If anyone can find the whole fatwa, it would be interesting to read, because I want.
But what is it based on? I didn't understand what it is based on.
I don't know. That's what I want to find out. But
okay.
I think I mean, in the Quran it says like, and punish them like they are punishing you. So maybe they think like, okay, but they are sending this, are bombing us, and that is creating fire and all. And it showed the last thing they did was they throwed some. It doesn't matter, but they want to like make it similar to what happens when you bomb someone.
Is that the quote? The quote
I don't
that
know,
they used is
but I maybe
punish them like they punished you?
I don't know what Ibn Taymiyyah's evidence are for it, but if anyone can find the whole fatwa or what the book, maybe I can research it.
But we can't do this now on the live show. So what you are saying, basically, there are attempts at whitewashing the burning of people as punishment.
Yeah, and obviously the Sahaba burned this guy. But
it seems to me like it's come to a point where they've seen, okay, we have cannibals. Remember the guy who ate the guy's heart? We have people who cut their heads off. We have people who do slavery. We have to put this line at some point because this is making our religion look bad. So,
maybe we should consider toning it down somewhat.
If they don't condone this, what are they going to condone? But
like they have condoned it, and like a lot of clerics have came out and said that burning people to death is utterly barbaric, and such punishment are only done by Allah.
I mean, there's clerics who say don't kill people, and we see. I think the question is there some high enough authority that can educate the people at that time? Maybe this is one of the reasons how I don't want to keep defending this Shiite version, but when there is one authority, like we say, one cleric did this one fatwa. One cleric is one guy between many of them. So this is not spread.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything really. Almost.
But like I don't know if you've seen this, but or if you heard this, but there was a massive protest in Jordan about the whole burning thing, and I think yeah.
I think that's primarily nationalistic. I think it really is primarily nationalistic.
And tribal.
And tribal. Well, nationalism I find is tribalism, but
true.
on a bigger scale. And so it's like, oh, you've done this to a Jordanian. How dare you? Well, you're not going to get these guys back.
Okay.
But just one extra point. I find that ironic that a cleric by the name of Salman al-Adha has demanded the crucifixion of the people who burned the pilot to death.
Yeah, this is exactly the point. Now it's going into extremes where everybody with a voice and a half can now go and make claims and make suggestions. I mean, it's going way off topic, and this is becoming a fantasy game. Listen, guys, I've got a question from the before we get Aiken. Can I just ask a question? what is the approach towards Aisha from the Shia?
Well, this would be an interesting for me to get into maybe next time, so I can do more research before I give you better answers. But on a general aspect, they're not a big fan.
That's the understatement of the year.
Yeah.
Okay. All right,
Yeah.
so
Just a
repeat
little,
that
yeah.
assembly with you next time.
Because
So-
they tend to curse Aisha, do they not?
Well,
Yeah.
I've heard more of cursing Omar than Aisha, but Aisha's definitely more of the way that I remember her and the way that I was taught, an imposter / someone who's trying to take advantage, whore / that kind of stuff, which...
Salsa, can you mute your microphone because we're getting feedback through this?
Yeah, the Shia picture I get of Aisha is
Yeah, Salsa, if you could, I'm sorry.
it-
Salsa, if you could mute that.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Thank you.
thanks. Yeah, the vision of the perspective of Aisha that I understand from Shia viewpoint is almost analogous to Delilah and Samson.
I don't know enough about Delilah and Samson to understand the reference.
Yeah, please.
Then,
expound.
I like Arash's suggestion. Why don't we do this properly? Why don't we devote like a full 15-minute segment on this the next time around when we start at 6 o'clock? Everybody listen up. 6 o'clock is the new beginning of the new show. 6 o'clock being PM and 6 o'clock being UTC, in other words, British time, which is the measure of all things. So it's all the British fault. So why don't we do it properly, and then Arash,
Do we want to focus on this, or do we want to do we want to just exactly go into Shia relationship to Aisha, or?
Yes,
Okay.
because I think everybody by now. Okay, well let's do the following. Let's do it really properly and say, okay, this is Aisha. This is who she was. This is why she's special. And now let's take at the Shia specific view on what she represents for Shias, because that is a very specific topic. Can you do that for next week?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Can you do that for next week? Would you prepare?
Yeah, I think I can do that. If you want to go, I can go into the whole Shia thing. I'll research that. If you want to give a quick thing over just who she is.
Yeah, then we'll do it like that. That would be brilliant. All right. And I'll include that for the topic, that one of the topics, because we have talked about Aisha, but we've talked about Aisha being the Sunni take, and in the Sirah, in the biography, and what role she plays. So this time we'll take a different tack. Brilliant. Okay, we've got Ike. Ike, what have you got for us?
Hello, yes. I just wanted to go back to the fatwa. Maybe it's more simple than everybody thinks, because you read in the Quran very often, this is the punishment here and after in the afterlife.
In the hereafter, yeah.
Yeah, this sentence you hear very often in the Quran. So this fatwa is very easy to explain with the Quran itself, I think.
Yeah, but there's nothing about burning being performed by humans, because it's a typical God thing. Gods are allowed to burn, not humans.
I think I get where he's coming at. So the hadith is about you're not supposed to burn people to death because God does it, and the fatwa is you should be able to burn people to death because God does it.
No.
In the
Can I say
Quran,
that?
it says very often this is the punishment for here and after.
Look, there's a funny example. For example, when you take the punishment of homosexuals, there they do the opposite, because the way they punish homosexuals is
They
based
freeze
on
them.
how...
They put them in a deep freeze.
No. They do the same thing that God did to them for, like, in English, Sodom and Gomorrah, isn't it called? It's Qawm Lut.
Well, Muhammad forgot about the name, so they're not mentioned in the Quran.
Yeah. But in English, so people know what I'm talking about. The Lut's people. So God punished them and sent Jibril, I think it was, and he thrown like stones and things. No. He took the earth under them and like.
Well, in the Quran it says he put them upside down.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why they're like throwing them from. Sometimes they are throwing them from like cliffs and then throwing stones at them and so on. So that's the opposite. There they are trying to mimic the punishment of God. But the reason why they don't.
Keep going.
They are trying to mimic the punishment of God there. But in this hadith, it's the opposite. You shouldn't punish them with the punishment of God. But there's a lot of things like in fiqh al-Islam, in like jurisprudence, you always have some like excuse. But in certain circumstances, it's allowed to do this because.
I think that's the main point that we can come to of how anything can change if they want it to change.
But can we get this? Can we get this absolutely clear to the audience? So, if you want to be a true Muslim, you must first do what God would do, and secondly, don't do what God would do.
Exactly. This is the culmination and summary. Yeah.
But only here, because not always. Sometimes you should do it. So,
and how do you know when not and when yes?
Well, you have to look at the hadith, and then you look at what the Sahaba and the Salaf al-Salih did. And then you can
some geezer's opinion on it will tell us the way.
And if you're comfortable, you take the Quran, and if you're uncomfortable, you take the hadith.
And if you're uncomfortable with both, you follow the fatwa.
And then you
just take
follow
an opinion of a hierarchy.
And if you're still uncomfortable with that, then you sort of just say, that's not really Islamic.
This is like a Chinese buffet, where you walk in there and you can decide, do I want noodles or rice? Do I want chicken or do I want pork? Do I want sweet and sour or do I want spicy? What is it? How is a Muslim? How can a Muslim be a Muslim? What is a Muslim?
Welcome to religion. That's our religion.
But like just one thing, I've never met a Muslim, or even me when I was a Muslim, where I based a perspective on a fatwa.
Well, here's
so what is the reason then? Why do you have fatwas? Why do people act on fatwas? Why is there such an outrage when an Ayatollah issues a fatwa telling people to kill Salman Rushdie?
No, so the question is Islam what we practice, or is it in the book? Right? That
exactly.
The original.
Well,
one of the interesting questions that I came up to and I thought was interesting to bring up, I was going to bring it in the beginning, is I had a debate with some guy, and he says, and I was saying, well, you have to judge Islam, by what the majority of people do. So Islam is what people practice. So if they are not condoning the Charlie Hebdo attack, then that means that in Islam it's okay to kill because of the Prophet. Okay, that's what that means. And he says, which is an interesting question, would you give it this merit? He says, well, if Islam can be defined by the actions of these people, can democracy be defined by what Bush did in Iraq and Afghanistan? What would you say to this?
Well, absolutely not, because it wasn't performed in the name of democracy.
See, it was though, almost.
Sorry?
It was almost done in the name of democracy.
How so? How was it done in the name of democracy?
When they were in America,
well, because he stated it mostly. Well, a lot of the things when they say are they Islamic or are they not Islamic, a lot of it is because they stated whether or not they were doing it for Islam.
Yeah, but hang on. Are we talking about George Bush? Are we talking about the old one or the senior or the junior?
The new one. You know, in America, when he first went in, he said mass destruction, but then the whole story went back to bringing democracy. That's what Afghanistan was about. Let's go and bring democracy to the place. Yes, there was take Al-Qaeda out, but you know what they fed to the people the majority of the time. You know, this changed in the beginning to the end. First, it was about 9/11. Then it was about weapons of mass destruction, or then it was about Saddam's connection to 9/11, and you know it changed. But then the main story that continued on until now is pretty much we were there to take democracy and take out dictators.
Okay, I didn't see that. I saw it as taking out the Taliban who were oppressing the people. So
right, and
it was to get rid of the primitive oppression.
Right, and then bringing democracy, and then
I didn't see that part.
You know, and that's how people in America see it, and that's how we see.
but democracy is not the end-all, be-all, and everything. I mean, come on. There's a lot
Of
of
course,
failures.
that's where I would say
And
there's
for a
a
lot of
difference.
people, Islam either.
Yeah, but this is why I didn't see Bush as doing something in the name of democracy. I saw
a lot of people
as United Nations acting on behalf of the people, the morality part, that they wanted to get first Kuwait out of Iraq out of Kuwait, and then stop
I mean, I'm talking about post-9.
Afghanistan. This is what I saw.
But like just one,
Like-
but just one thing that I wanted to add, regarding the original point that you're meant to judge Muslims by the majority of their actions. A Muslim contention to that would be, since Islam is not a monolith, then that would be a guilt by association fallacy.
So
Well,
then
I
how can
would
you judge
also-
it?
oh,
then?
Yeah,
If
but
you
I would
can-
also say, oh, sorry, I would just say that the big thing too is democracy doesn't mean the one thing. So to the nationalist, patriotic North Americans who are like, yeah, this is for democracy. Well, democracy to them was this very United States sort of concept of liberty, and not always of a representative form of elected governments. In the same way, Islam doesn't always mean like one thing. Like one Muslim, it could be, oh, it's fluffiness, and the other
Well, I
one
think one of
is
the differences, though, people who go in democracy don't think their way of democracy is the only way of democracy. But most Muslims try to think my way is the best way. You know, I mean, not always, of course. Maybe
actually,
even
I find that there's a lot of people who think their version of democracy is the most democratic democracy.
but they don't
Yeah.
think
Like,
that the
for example,
other
get a
ones-
social democrat
This one.
in the same room as, say, I don't know, a Tea Partier.
See, I would even say that it's okay, and it is okay to judge democracy by what Bush did, because it was a result of a democratic nation. This is, if a group of people gets fed propaganda into believing that it's okay to do this, and they have the power, it can happen. That's one of the problems. It's not a perfect thing. No one says it's perfect, but I think that's a flaw. You can say that. But Islam is supposed to be an eternal, godly thing. So there's a whole difference between, and democracy doesn't have one book. There's a Quran.
But in the case of
those sort of-
Bush, sorry.
I'm just saying that you can.
I know,
criticize
like
everything.
what the general
At
way
what
I
it is.
go about, yeah, I get it. But the general way I go about that is simply saying, well, define exactly what you mean, say, by democracy, or define what you mean by Islam, and we'll argue about that concept.
And then
because
we'll
I don't
never get
think the
anywhere.
word-
But the
Yeah, I
problem,
don't think the
I mean,
word
okay,
generalize.
technically, to defend the whole American thing, America's technically not a democracy; it's a republic, right? So,
It's a not even much.
yes, but it's a representative democracy. But so the commenter was looking at it as a democracy, but you could say it's a republic where the heads are brought in democratically, right?
But do you want to know why Bush is the worst example of a democracy state?
But that was exactly his point, and we always bring in ISIS as the worst example of Islam. But can we judge it as so?
Yeah, but
Of
you
course,
can't
we
say
can't,
that
because in the
democracy.
case of Bush his father was already a president. So how can it be in a good democracy that almost like a little dynasty is built?
I mean, here in America, it's all about money.
Worst democracy.
It's about money, and
That's no democracy for
How
me,
can
at
it be
least.
democracy if you are implementing democracy by force? I mean, that is a dictatorship, and not a. You can't have a dictatorship.
Well, would you say Australia is democratic then? Because
so you guys aren't saying America is a democracy. Or is democratic.
Well, I don't know. I was just going to say this to stop because he said, "How could you force democracy on people?" In Australia, voting is compulsory. So are we forcing democratic obligations upon our people? And if that's so, is Australia therefore not a democracy? This is what I mean by defining the term.
The government
yeah.
of Australia is
No,
a
I mean, democracy doesn't mean
but
you don't do it.
the state
People-
is at least a monarchy because the queen is
We're a
still
Yeah, we are a constitutional monarchy, but like for example, we do have democratic elections, yeah, but because they're forced, because it's compulsory to vote, you must vote or you get fined or even detained. But it's because that's forced. That democratic obligation is forced upon us. According to Stop's definition, if it's forced upon you, how can you really call it democracy? So, as our democratic process here in Australia, because it is forced, we have compulsory election. Is it democratic?
I don't know why they're equating that because we're forced. I mean, in America, we're forced to pay taxes. Why is it? That has anything to do with democracy.
Yeah,
if we vote for that to happen, that's okay. Can you change that in Australia? If everyone votes to change this, can they change this?
I think you'd need to have a referendum going to do so.
But the point that I'm making is you can't tell people you must have a democracy. This is what I'm saying. Democracy means that the majority determines what happens. So it's a people-based decision system. And you cannot enforce this by saying you must have a democracy. I find that ludicrous.
I'm just saying...
Hang on, if you tell people you can have a democracy, and if you decide you want a monarchy, if you decide that you want to have a dictatorship, if you decide you're going to have a military junta, then that's fine. But then this is your decision, that is your choice, and how you want to run your lives. That's fine, but you can't say you must have a democracy. You can have one rule or one vote, and then you can decide what you want to do. But implementing democracy by force, I think that.
But I mean, the question wasn't implementing by force. I mean, that wasn't. The question is. I mean, this happened because America, in a way, was democratic, so the people allowed it. When this happened, people were for it. The majority of them were. So you could say this was a legitimate thing done by Bush in some ways because the people were, maybe by lies, turned with him. So, but, I don't think that you can deny that that's an issue that can happen because of democracy. Sometimes democracies can do bad things. It's not like it's okay because it's not a perfect thing.
Like, I can't remember.
That democracy is not perfect, but it's the best thing after everything else, right? So I mean, it's not perfect, but we don't have to accept it.
Just just one point. I can't remember the exact figure, so I'm just gonna estimate it. But apparently, I think something like 69% of all Americans still think that Saddam Hussein was involved in the 9/11 attacks.
Yep.
And
this is why democracy sucks.
Yep.
Well, it's not why democracy sucks.
It was a tongue-in-cheek comment.
Right. I mean, it gets very complicated.
All right, guys, we're going
okay.
to continue like this for the next 4 hours. This is what happens on the Magic Sandwich Show. They do this. They carry on and on and on. As soon as you get into politics, it seems to be a violent topic, which just seems to continue with, because we're never going to have a consensus, everybody, because this is what politics seems to do. So we've run for 2 hours now, talking about Shia Muslims, talking about the differences. Well, talking about Islam. So I don't think we should now start defining democracy here.
Yeah, true that.
So then I suggest we call it a day. Do you have any closing statements? If you want to just simply make a closing statement, say something, and then remove yourself, and then we'll bring this to a close. Let's start from my side on the left. Mr. Abu Molhid, what is your closing thought and idea? And thank you. I was going to use your comment as the hadith of the day, and now you've already read it, so now there's going to be none.
Don't play with fire.
Oh, that was very clever. Okay, thank you very much for your contribution. Thanks for popping in, and thank you very much, Abu Bolhid. We'll see you next week. Okay, then we have the next on my left as will be Ike. What is your closing thought?
Not much, just ridicule the ridicule.
Yeah, this is the only thing you can do. Thank you very much for popping in. We'll see you next week. Then we have Salamut. What is your thought?
Not much, really. Thanks for having me on, I guess.
Thanks for popping in and thanks for contributing. Always welcome. Thank you very much. Cheers and see you next week. Then we have Salsa. Thank you very much for contributing. Any last ideas?
I was going to, well, I was thinking of a witty remark to make, but then I thought, I'm too tired, so I'm just kind of...
Okay, there's always next week, and remember, next week it's going to be 6 o'clock. Salsa, thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.
Okay.
All right, guys. Arash, thank you very much. How was your first show?
I thought it went well, but I missed Linkshore and his greater knowledge of the histories, some of the things that I like.
Yeah, he does bring things together nicely. This is true, yeah. Well, okay, well, he's taking a well-deserved break. I can understand that because, you know, you do tend to get tired. Do you know how many times I've actually wanted to throw this because I get so frustrated with everything because it's so repetitive and it's so...
Well, I think
it's tedious.
I think you're right about the whole staying on topic and not getting into random discussions that get nowhere, and at some point we're defining democracy. So it's a good. See, this is the kind of perspective that we need to bring in every once in a while to see where we're at. So yeah. All right. Well, thanks for having us, and maybe when we get off the live, and then.
Okay, guys. See you, and remember, it's going to be 6 o'clock.